Hi there, welcome to today's video. I'm Natasha of Natasha Letters, and today we're doing things a little bit different. I'm setting up my February bullet journal, and for the year so far I have been using mini brand eggs to decide my theme for the month, but I thought for October it would be fun to do a mega gross mini instead. So let's open it up and let's see what's in store for me. I'm still struggling with this format a little bit because I want to show you and share with you what's in the egg, but then I also want to set up my bullet journal because I know you're probably here for the bullet journal content versus mystery unboxings. So I've decided to play the unboxing in the corner and then share more of my process with you on the main screen. So what I'm doing here, I chose the quote, "It's all a bunch of hocus pocus," for my lettering. And what you saw me doing was matching my acrylographs to the color palette that I chose. There's probably an easier way to do it, but this is just easier for me because sometimes I may not have the settings on my computer or on my iPad set up with my printers, so the colors sometimes don't come out as vivid. This time they do. I think I figured it out, but it's just easier to match the actual colors to what's been printed. So what you see now on the screen is the catch that's part of my setup for October, and that is a flip page that you're going to see me put together shortly. Right now I'm taking my Tim Holtz Distress ink in black soot and I'm creating a black background. Another thing I could have done was to take a piece of black paper or blackout paper from one of my notepads and use that instead. So when I'm doing layouts like this, that is a version of a Dutch door essentially, I kind of like to cut it into the notebook so that it's not as bulky, or the notebook doesn't become as bulky. I do love a chunky notebook though, and my notebooks end up chunky anyways, even if I don't take these precautions, for lack of a better word. So now I'm gluing my page down and I'm going to cut around the page, so about halfway across the page. So I'm in a B5, so it's about 16 boxes, and I'm going to cut the page, and this is where I'm going to fold it and line up the second hand-lettered page and glue it down. So you see me fold it. This was a little bit stressful for me because I'm not used to folding thick pages like that, and somehow with the glue and the hand-lettered piece it was just very thick and chunky, and I don't know, I'm probably more comfortable cutting pages than I was doing that, so it was really funny to me. And since I'm going to be gluing down half of this page, you see me cutting it to size now, I only did the background for half of it so that I didn't have to make my arm tired adding color to the whole page and then gluing over top of it anyways. By folding it in half and cutting it down to size like this, it was easier to line up the second piece that I'd lettered, which was important for me because I wanted the eyeball to remain in the same place. And I just realized now, if you didn't watch me open the egg, you wouldn't realize what my theme is. But my theme is an ice cream, so EYE, scream. And it's basically a disgusting, gross eyeball on an ice cream cone. And I thought that was really fun and easy to replicate in my journal for my theme for October. So that's kind of what I leaned into and went with. And I wanted to give my pieces a bit more of a distressed look, which is what you see me doing now, adding ink to the sides of the pages. I'd also left a very small white border. It just, when I use my cutting board, it can be difficult to line up. So there was a very small white border where I hadn't cut close enough to the piece, and so I just added the black to it, made it grungy, and then also got rid of that white border. And I also ran into some issues lining it up properly so that it was straight. When I ended up folding the page, it didn't fold quite as well as I thought it did, so that the red piece ended up looking skew for some reason, but it wasn't skew, but it was skew, and it was just bugging me. So I kept trying to see if I could line it up better. It still worked out, which made me happy. So it is what it is, even though it doesn't look straight. I'm adding black borders as usual, which I really think finishes off my layouts. I've been doing it ever since I started creative bullet journaling, so it's not finished until I add my black borders. I'm going in and creating the same black background as I did for my leaded piece, but I wanted the insides around the cone to be not as dark, so it was just a matter of blending until it looked the way I wanted it to. As I'm editing the video, it still looks a little bit uneven, but when I finish the cover page, it'll look better. I'm cutting the tabs for my notebook. I like to cut them into the notebook so that they're protected by the edges of the hardcover. I just do basic tabs where I round the edges, and then I like to have the tabs all line up on one side of the page. So I will change the measurements of the tabs based on how many pages I use that month. As you can see, I'm cutting the tabs into the pages now, which means I don't add any more pages to the month after I'm done with the setup. This journal is primarily for my planning, my week-to-week planning. So I rarely ever add any additional tab. If I'm doing something like long form journaling or prompt journaling, I will do that in either my health or wellness or my journaling journal. I generally won't add that to this journal. I have been so busy the last few months, as you can tell by my poor video posting schedule, that I've been having a really hard time keeping up even in my prompt journaling or reflection journaling. So that's really something that I want to get back to. Honestly, I need to find a good balance between work and then doing stuff that's for me. Lately, I have a couple of projects going on. I have work, obviously, which I love, and that's been really busy. And then I've got a couple other projects going on that's been taking up a lot of time. And then just parenting in general. It's been hard to find a routine. Our teachers are on strike, which go teachers, I support them wholeheartedly. And so just when we were getting into a routine, the routine changed. And so it's been a little bit challenging to find a routine. So very much fly by the seat of our pants, come what may. So I don't see it getting any better. So now it's just a matter of getting comfortable out of routine. One thing that I'm actually going to try, I ordered a dated planner from Acrylograph. And so maybe I will give that a try in January. January is already looking super busy and overwhelming. So I think that might be the right move for me, which I'm having a hard time coming to terms with since I like having the creative freedom of the bullet journal. But at the same time, I need a better way of being able to do what I love. And I love setting up my journal every month. I really do. But I also really want to grow my online presence. And so finding that balance between creating and growing my presence and being present is what I'm going to be working on and trying to figure out. So while I was talking about that, I was coloring in my ice cream with my acrylographs, and I'm using a white acrylograph, which you can't really tell what's going on, but there was a little bit of smudging from the background, and so the white acrylograph just kind of covered that up a little bit more and made the white eyeball pop a bit. And then I'm adding highlights to the dripping sludge. And working with acrylographs, you just have to let the layers dry. So I was working on things here and there as the layers were drying. And I'm grabbing my stamp set and I'm stamping October. I believe the stamp set's from Ali Edwards. It has been discontinued. While I was talking about the notebooks and content and stuff like that, my biggest sticking point, honestly, is video editing. I have so many videos that I'm excited to share with you. I just haven't had the chance to sit down and edit them. And so that is something, I guess that is something I should be making time for. So I added some details to the cone and then just going in and adding shadows as well as some highlights. I feel like I swerved there in between talking about what I was doing and then talking about video editing. The reason why I brought that up, I'm working on a massive stamp organization project and I can't wait to share it. It's taking a long time, but I'm very excited because A, my stamps are going to be so well organized, and B, mostly my stamps are going to be so well organized. And swerving back to my layout, you can't have a goopy ice cream without having some flies around it. So I just drew some black dots and then went in with a light gray acrylograph and just added some wings to it. Very simple, but very effective. And you'll see me go in the next few layouts that I set up and add flies as well, because I just think they're so cute and funny and just gross. So I liked how it turned out. Now I'm getting into setting up my calendar page, and I wanted to bring the whole eyeball, they're watching you feel to this layout as well. And so I ended up cutting a reverse Dutch door, I guess I could call it, into my calendar, where if you flip the calendar, you see the eyeball staring at you. So that's what I'm measuring out right now. So I'm grabbing a small cutting mat and putting that behind the page, and then just using a craft knife to cut into the notebook. And then because I wanted to do a reverse Dutch door, I did it from the middle going toward the outside of the book, if that makes sense. You'll see me now when I fold it over. So I did leave a bit of space in the center of the notebook and used some double-sided tape to glue that down properly so that it didn't keep popping up and it won't rip in the future. And then just using my glue runner to add glue to the rest of the page. Again, another way you could do this is with a separate piece of paper, but I wanted to cut it into my notebook since this setup was already going to be bulkier than my normal setup. And here you see me trying to line up the pages better. I really did not do a good job of that. So it ended up gluing down not lined up, which did bother me a little bit, but I was only going to have one tab anyways. So instead of gluing the two tab pieces together, I just cut one off completely and then just had the one page tab left, or the one ply tab left. Now, I opted for a reverse Dutch door for this layout because I wanted it to be unexpected. Given that it's Halloween and the general theme of my layout, I thought having a reverse Dutch door is really fun and unexpected and on theme with what I was trying to do. So just like with my cover pages, I wanted to add a black background to it. So I'm adding in these sticky notes. If I was clever, I would have not glued the pages together and I would have added the black background before I glued everything. But I wasn't, so I'm using sticky notes to mask off the areas of my page that I don't want to get ink on. And this is a very common technique among stampers and scrapbookers, and it's very easy and effective. So that is why there's this bright pop of pink. I will be removing it. And then I wanted to have an eyeball in the center, but didn't want to look for my compass, so just used what I had. And you'll see me use a lid as well for the center of the eyeball just because it was nearby. So going in and adding the ink and just blending. Again, I wanted the outside to be darker than the inside, so just blending as I go. This didn't turn out quite as well as I'd hoped, but I was still happy with the overall outcome. When I eventually finish my stamp organization, I'm super excited to show what the little bits and pieces you see in and around my layout mean. So for example, my distress ink oxide chart, how I organize my sponges, my ink pads. I'm just very excited to get into that hopefully soon, but it is taking a little bit longer to document all of my stamps. Today's side quest involved reorganizing and cleaning the garage. So there's always a fun side quest that pops up, and maybe one day I'll do a video on what those side quests involve. They're pretty predictable for the most part, but there's definitely some that I should not be doing when I already have so much other work to do. I thought it would be fun to bring out this wooden block alpha stamp set that I have. I got it off Amazon and I haven't used it in a while, and I thought the font would match perfectly with the theme of my monthly layout. So I stamped out "They're Watching" and then grabbing my Tom Studio pen and just adding in a loose border around the edges. Currently, I like using the 0.3 wide tip in my Tom Studio Lumos pen. It's really great for writing, but I've also enjoyed using it to add in small details here and there when I'm doing my layouts. I wanted to leave in removing the sticky notes because it's always so fun to see how clean the edges are once they're removed. And now I'm drawing in the grid for my calendar. I'm leaving the eyeball portion open because I need the acrylograph ink to dry. And then once that's dry, I go in and finish the rest of the grid for my calendar. And then using the same stamp set I did on the cover page over top of my calendar for October. And I will use that throughout my layouts for the rest of the setup, as well as the wooden block alpha stamp set as well. I have sped this up quite a bit. Stamping does take a bit of time, but I really do enjoy it. I find it very meditative almost, as long as I get the right letters. Apparently I used up a lot of my focus time on the colorful creative part of this because things kind of fell apart on the actual stamping side of this. You'll see when I do my weekly setup, things fall apart quite a lot, but even on this calendar page, I stamped the numbers to match the days. And of course, I had the wrong calendar. So I ended up having to correct for it, which you'll see how I ended up correcting it. But it was a struggle bus. And then as usual, I'm using my B5 journaling stencil from Archer and Olive, and I'm creating checkboxes for the notes section of my calendar page. This is where I include just things that I need to keep in mind for the week as a whole. I saw Jess of Jashi Corinne do this, and I absolutely loved it and have been doing it myself ever since. And then of course, going in and adding some of the eyeball ice cream details to this page. I decided to do a eyeball in a waffle cone bowl and I thought it was really fun and worked out really well. I also added a generic eyeball and added the goop as well because I really like the green sludge dripping off of everything, and I went so far as to add it to the bottom of my calendar page as well, just to act as a visual interest outside of using washi. I was very proud of this layout, and I showed my husband and my son, and that's when they pointed out that I had the dates wrong. October actually starts on a Wednesday. So I got creative and kind of fixed it. I could have just used a white acrylograph to go in and cover up the numbers. However, sometimes if your ink hasn't dried for long enough, it might still bleed through the jelly roll or the white paint pen, depending on what you're using. And so I actually ended up adding black paper dots over top of it. I use these dots for when I do my goal planning, and so I had extras on hand, and thankfully I had black ones. So I just went in and stuck those over top of the numbers, and then just used a white gel pen to write the dates on top of it. And of course, my favorite part of doing these doodles and little illustrations is adding the details just to bring it all together and really finish it up. That includes just adding a darker shadow onto the outside of the sludge and then adding details to the waffle bowl. And there you see me adding the little flies to the layout as well. I was overthinking how to create the flies so much, and I was getting super detailed. The sketches of the flies that I was doing was definitely way too detailed than I wanted, and I was getting really frustrated. But then something as simple as a little black dot with wings just brought it all together. So the lesson there for me, or at least the reminder there for me, was to keep it simple and not to overthink things, which I'm very good at. And then speaking of simple, we are 20 minutes into the video and I've only done 2 layouts, but the rest of the video is definitely more straightforward. I did spend more time on the first 2 layouts because I was having fun and I really liked how the theme was coming alive. And I dialed it back a little bit, so didn't really put any Dutch doors in the layouts. I used to love putting Dutch doors in my weekly layouts, but I find I need to see everything on one page. If I don't see it, I'm more likely to forget about it. So seeing everything on one page is really more helpful to me. And like I said, as much as my journal is a creative outlet for me, it's also very practical and I do need it for functional purposes. So every month it's a balance of allowing myself creative freedom, but then also keeping it practical for day-to-day use. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where I start fixing the dates on my calendar. I do go in with a white acrylograph over top of the stamp to begin with. Once the acrylograph was dried, then I put the black sticker down. The sticker didn't cover the number completely, so by going over with the white acrylograph, you didn't see the original mistake and I wouldn't get confused with the actual date. I know that sounds silly, but with work, we work ahead, and then there are times where I have no idea what the day or the season is. So it really is a struggle for me to stay on top of this and know which season I'm in and what the date is. For example, we're heading into fall, but for work, we worked on fall back in spring, I think it was early spring. And so now my body doesn't understand, or my brain doesn't understand, why it's fall and it's so cold when fall wasn't so cold last time. But last time was actually spring because it wasn't actually fall. So it's just this big cluster in my head and apparently giving me a hard time, and I'm just being silly about it. Moving on to my next layout is my monthly overview page. This is the page where I capture important dates, my mini goal focus for the month, what I have coming up, and then things I'm excited for. I also have a habit tracker chart and then just a general notes section for things that I want to capture. I've mostly been using this section to write down things I need to remember for the month as a whole. So for example, for October, to book our flu vaccinations or to keep track of birthdays as well. We're getting into our busy birthday season. Our birthdays tend to be the end of the year / beginning of the year. So it's just nice to have a place to write it down. I could also use my calendar, yes, but more so for birthday parties for my kids where I don't really need to remember these birthdays in the long term potentially, but that's what I tend to use this section for. For the important dates section, I have 2 columns. On the one side, I include important dates for my personal life, and then on the other side, I include important dates for work. So this helps me just keep an overall eye on what's coming and kind of triggers my brain into remembering those dates. For my mini goal focus, I don't like to have too many mini goal items to focus on since I will get overwhelmed and then not do any of it. I actually meant to start my goal planning and goal focusing in September and I didn't because I bit off more than I could chew, got overwhelmed and didn't do anything. So I'm trying to combat that this month. But like I said, I did include too many lines, but just because the lines are there doesn't mean I have to use them. For the coming up section, this is where I like to include things that are coming up for the next month. So I don't set up the next month until halfway through or toward the end of the current month. And so I just needed a place in my journal to capture what was coming up. And then of course, things that I'm excited for. So this is just a little journaling section in my notebook that I like to have and just to get excited for what's coming up for the month. For my habit tracker, I don't include that many items either. Again, it gets overwhelming if I track too much, and habit tracking is something I'm trying to get back into, so just want to come back to it slowly. But instead of doing it by the week, I did want to do it by the month because it's easier to see patterns or see issues when you're looking at it as a whole versus in bits and pieces. And then of course I wanted to add an eyeball with some goop just to tie it into the overall theme, and then add some more of those cute little flies that you'll see me add in a moment. I've really been in the Halloween spirit this year, and I don't know what makes this year different from last year, but I am so excited to the point where I almost want to do an entire journal of just Halloween themes. So every month pick a Halloween theme to do. And I don't know why. I normally do love Halloween, but this year in particular, I'm feeling very festive. I did start painting some wooden houses in August that were Halloween themed that I got from Michael's, and I had a blast putting those together. I ended up sticking moss on them and some spiders and spider webs, and so I think that really helped get me into the mood. I used to get really excited for Christmas, but not so much anymore, so I'm wondering if I do the same that I did for Halloween, if I'll be in a more Christmas mood. I always have such high expectations for the holiday, and of course that just sets you up for failure sometimes. So I've been really tapering my expectations, but almost to a fault, I guess. I don't know. Something to keep in mind, especially if doing arts and crafts earlier helps build that excitement for the season as a whole. Moving on to my weekly setup, I used the same weekly setup that I used the previous month, which is the more vertical layout. I also want to apologize. I have the washing machine going. My neighbors have a leaf blower going. And so it's just very loud here, and I'm not quite sure what my mic is and isn't picking up. So I apologize if there's a lot of background noise, but I'm setting up my weekly setup. I started off with stamping an O for October, and that was basically all I did, was carry over the stamp fonts into the week. I didn't add any of the eyeball details or the little flies, although I guess looking at it now, I can just doodle some of the flies if I really wanted to. But this particular layout was a bit of a cluster. I started stamping the days of the week in the wrong boxes, so I just ended up cutting bits and pieces of paper from where I cut my tabs and then gluing that over top of the mistake that I made. And this might be common sense, but for me this was very helpful. Instead of cutting a small piece of paper to just cover the mistake, I ended up cutting a longer piece of paper so that I could stamp everything on that one piece of paper, and I wasn't stamping half on the paper, half off the paper. I hope that makes sense. You see me do it in the video where instead of just covering up the mistake, I put a whole strip of paper across the whole area that I'm going to be stamping on. This way it's just easier to stamp more evenly and not to worry about hitting the edge of the page. After fixing all of my mistakes and re-stamping everything, I add my to-do list. So on the left-hand side, I stamp an L for life, and on the right-hand side, I stamp a W for work. And so on the left-hand side, I have my life to-do list, and on the right-hand side, I have my work to-do list. Again, this came from using the Alistair method for a number of years, and I came to this conclusion that this simple list works better for me. And so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years now. Under my calendar, I stamped Get It Done. So this is where I'm putting my priorities that I need to focus on for the week. I'll be honest with you, I've been rewriting the same priority every week since the first week of October. I hate it, but life happens, and then you end up rewriting the priorities every week of October. I'm now working on my review page. So when I did my latest bullet journal setup, I ended up adding detail down the whole side of the last page, and this detail ended up showing through the different tabs as I paged through it, and I really love that. So for October, I took my green glitter acrylograph and I added a green strip to show through depending on which page I was on. So this is my month in review page. I have my big win for the month, other wins that I want to include, how I'm feeling, what I'm celebrating, and then what I will be focusing on in the next month. The right-hand side of the page I am reserving for memory keeping. I keep promising that I will do a video on catching up on all of my memory keeping, as I haven't done any. And I am still holding myself to that because it's really something I do want to tie into my notebooks and something I do want to keep. I remember being at a conference and one of the people I was sitting with made a very good point about doing it when you're in the moment, otherwise you'll just keep putting it off. And that is so true for journaling. As you know, you get busy. When you have a whole list of things to do, going back and adding some photos and some journaling doesn't feel that important, but it is such a nice keepsake to have in your journal, and especially when you page through it at the end of the year. I'm adding in my final touches, which include my checkboxes, and then taking a lighter Tombow and going in and highlighting the lines. Of course, adding in my borders as well. And that is my setup for October. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them down below. If you're curious about something I did and I didn't talk about it, let me know and I can definitely answer that question for you. My November setup is coming, hopefully sooner rather than later, as given the date I'm posting this should probably have been my November. But again, as I said earlier in the video, life happens and here we are. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. If you would like more content on bullet journaling, you can check out one of the 2 videos below. See you over there.